All right, everyone. I think we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome. I'm Whitney. I'm the Adult Services Manager here at the library. Just wanted to welcome you here tonight. We're so honored that Cynthia reached out to us on her book tour and is here with us tonight. Gramercy Books is partnering with us. They're in the back, and Cynthia will be signing books at the end of the program. And while our library closes at 8, there's no rush to get out. But if you do need to use the elevator, just let me know, and we'll have to go through the library. But otherwise, you'll just exit through the auditorium stairs. And then I am filming this program tonight. A recording will be on our Bexley Public Library YouTube page. If you want to rewatch it, share it with others, you can find it there. Okay. Wonderful. Well, I have a few words about Cynthia. She is the CEO and founder of the Kane Intentional Communication Institute, LLC, and her work will teach you how to have more calm interactions in everyday life, from your home to the workplace. In addition to the pause principle, she is the author of How to Communicate Like a Buddhist, Talk to Yourself Like a Buddhist, and How to Meditate Like a Buddhist, and was named by Yahoo as the number 2 communication coach to watch in 2021. She and her work have been featured in national and international publications, including Self Magazine, Thrive Global, The Washington Post, The Chicago Tribune. She's been featured, been a featured mindfulness and meditation expert on Great Day Washington, Good Morning Arizona, All About Women, and WENG Radio. She's a Bachelor of Arts degree from Bard College and a Master of Fine Arts degree from Sarah Lawrence College. She grew up in Bexley and now lives in Washington, D.C. with her family. So please welcome Cynthia Blair Kane. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let me know if you can hear me okay. Yes, okay, great. So before I start, I'd love for everybody to close their eyes for a moment and just settle into the space that we're in. And I want you to call to mind an interaction that you had that was difficult, that was challenging. And see if you can observe your body language in that moment, your tone of voice, the speed at which you're speaking, the volume. Notice how the other person or group of people is interacting with you. And maybe how you're treating inanimate objects that are around you, maybe like your phone or pens, car doors. And you can let this image go. And now call to mind a conversation you had that felt really comfortable, one that felt really productive for you. And start to notice here the volume of your voice, your body language, the pace at which you're connecting. How the other person is responding to you, how you're treating inanimate objects. And you can let this image go and just take a deep inhale and an exhale. And slowly blink your eyes open. Just notice the shapes, the colors around you, and come back. So I like to start in this way because a lot of us, we don't often take too much time to pay attention to how we are actually interacting in a difficult conversation or even in a really calm, relaxed conversation. So I just want to throw it out there to ask, what did you notice in terms of the difficult conversation? Did you notice anything with the volume of your voice, the pace of your voice, just what was the observation that you found or noticed? You can just yell it out if you want to. Louder. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anyone else? Sharper. Mm-hmm. Tension in the body, right? Yeah. Sometimes we get louder in difficult conversations. We can feel more tense. Sometimes we can get quieter in difficult conversations. We can just feel so overwhelmed that we shut down, we walk away, right? Sometimes we notice that we speed up the pace when we're speaking and when we're interacting. We're really trying to get our point across, right? And we just feel almost like it's not a real flowing interaction, right? It really is more of a back and forth, right? So what did you notice about the calm conversation or the more relaxed interaction? Anything? Lighter. Mm-hmm. Yeah, right? There's connection. You can feel it's more of a back and forth, less of like a volleying and more of, listening to the other, engaging with the other. Body language is usually more open. The tone of voice is more calm. We have a slower pace while we're talking, right? And just like that openness that we feel in the body. So a lot of us really, I would say, I think most of us really want more calm conversations in our lives, right? Or more relaxed conversations. Yet right now, there is a tendency to have more challenging conversations or more difficult conversations are popping up, whether at home, at work, or just in our day-to-day. And how do we actually navigate those challenging situations? How do we navigate those challenging interactions? And that's really what I want to talk to today. For some of you who don't know me, my name is Cynthia Kane, and really the way I describe it is if you've ever gotten passive-aggressive, lashed out, walked away, I really teach people how to stay in a conversation even when it's challenging to do. And I used to be a horrible communicator. I was very, very passive-aggressive. I love shutting down. I love walking away from confrontation. And I didn't know it at the time, but it really affected a lot of my relationships, my personal relationships, even my relationships at work. And I lost my first love very unexpectedly, and it threw me into trying to really figure out how to enjoy my time here. And while I was kind of on this search to figure it out, that's when I learned about meditation, that's when I learned about mindfulness, and I learned the elements of right speech in Buddhism. And so my first books are really around the practice that I found that really helped me expand my capacity for discomfort. So what I started to play around with was how do I change the way that I interact in the world so that I can find a way to enjoy my time here. And a lot of it first started with how I communicated with myself, and then it moved out into how I communicated with others. So there was how to communicate like a Buddhist, talk to yourself like a Buddhist, and how to meditate like a Buddhist. Those were the first books. And really all of what I learned to be able to communicate in a kind, honest, and helpful way has so much to do with what is happening within our bodies in the challenging moment that we're in, right? And as I started working with people, what I noticed was there's this moment that we have between the stimulus and the response. And Viktor Frankl has a wonderful quote from A Man's Search for Meaning that says, between stimulus and response, there is a space, and in that space lies our freedom to choose our response, and in that response lies our freedom, right? It lies our happiness. And so what a lot of people that I was working with were having a challenge with is that moment between, someone says something and the reaction, or a difficult moment and the reaction. And So this next book that I wrote, The Pause Principle here, is really teaching in the moment practices to be able to expand our capacity for discomfort so that we can then communicate in a way that we respect in those really hard moments, right? So today I thought it would be nice to read a little bit from the book, and then, we'll meditate together, because that is a big piece of this as well. And then we'll open it up for questions if you guys have any questions. So one of the first questions that usually people ask is, why is it so challenging to pause, right, in a difficult conversation? We understand it, that we should stop and think. I mean, probably a lot of people have been told, just take a breath, right? Just take a moment. And it sounds so simple, so why can't we do it? And there's a real reason why we can't do it, because we are just not biologically wired, really. We have to do the opposite of what our body wants to do. So you can go back with me for a moment, 200,000 years ago, to the Stone Age. Here we are, we're living in a cave. Our focus is on shelter, it's on finding food, protecting ourselves and those we love from predatory animals and the elements. There is not a moment where we aren't attuned to what's happening around us. So when a threat is known, we're ready. If it's not the sounds that keep us up at night, it's the fear of infection, animals, other tribes. We are always on high alert. To be on guard at all times, we rely heavily on our sympathetic nervous system. So the sympathetic nervous system is the fight, flight, freeze response. It really is this involuntary physiological reaction that happens with a perceived threat. It starts in the oldest part of the brain, which is the reptilian part, and it releases tons of hormones, adrenaline, cortisol, which is the stress hormone. And these hormones activate physical changes within us so that we're prepared to fight off a threat, flee to safety, or pretend we're dead so the big animal passes over us. These changes, they happen instantly because they're designed to save our lives. So here's what's interesting. The evolutionary psychologists have found that our bodies still react to a perceived harmful event, attack, or threat in the same way that it did back in the Stone Age. So today we call this the stress response. And the stress response, it's really good when we are in emergency situations. And however, though, any stressful situation, physical, environmental, psychological, or emotional, can trigger the stress response. And we know that the interactions that we're getting into, these difficult interactions at home, at work, in our day-to-day, they're psychologically and emotionally stressful. So instead of a lion right now that's threatening our survival, now it's conversations with our colleagues, with our employees, with our partner, with our kids, right? With people in the post office. They're just there, day in, day out, threatening our survival, whether we know it or we don't, right? It is something that is happening within us. So this reactivity, it might be happening more often than before because many of us are really in a chronic state of stress day in and day out. Anytime we're in conflict or we're in disagreement where we feel attacked by someone's words, thoughts, ideas, or opinions, we perceive it to be threatening. And so the limbic system treats it as if it were a potential threat to our survival. We react because this old part of the brain, which exists back here, the reptilian or primal part, it takes over and it makes it hard to respond wisely and in a controlled and balanced way. So because we're wired to protect ourselves, the reactive you is really running the show, right? Which is making it impossible to pause and say anything or, kind and honest and helpful in that moment, or to lead intelligently in these conversations. So it is a nice gesture on our biology's part. However, in our world right now, it isn't the kind of safeguarding that we really need. So while we have the sympathetic nervous system, we also have the parasympathetic nervous system. And the sympathetic nervous system is the fight and flight, and the parasympathetic is our rest and digest. And that is really the relaxed response. So parasympathetic, we've all experienced it before. It is that, early moment in the morning where it might just be you and a cup of coffee, or, you're walking down the street and you hear the birds and, you feel the sun shining. It's that moment of calm that we all feel at some point throughout the day, right? So this is really activated when we feel safe, and it allows the body to function optimally. So the feel-good hormones increase, and the cortisol and all of that and the adrenaline, they decrease. So to move in a conversation really from the chaos, which is the sympathetic nervous system, into the calm, which is the parasympathetic nervous system, that is the pause within an interaction. We are basically learning to sub out, should I talk over here more? We're basically learning to sub out the sympathetic nervous system and bring in the parasympathetic nervous system. Basically, taking out the chaos, and can we bring in the calm? So right now in a difficult conversation, everything happens really quickly. It's so automatic, and it's really hard to know what's happening. So someone says something, a group is there, and the first thing that happens is we feel something in our body, and that's really our first signal, right? So our work is, can we start to soften, right? You were talking, we get tense in these difficult moments. So instead of that tension, what we want to start to do is, can we soften in that moment, right? Where we want to make hard, can we actually relax? Can we open in that moment where we want to close our fists? And it's hard because we are going against our biology, right, in that moment. So what we want to learn to do is we want to learn to be able to soften in the moment where we are tense, right? And that is what these practices help you do in the moment. So the first piece is sensation, and that is really paying attention to what is happening in your body during a difficult conversation so that we understand that we're in discomfort. Right now, some of us might even know that we might not know that we're uncomfortable, right? Or that we feel discomfort. And so our work is to start paying attention to what is happening in the body with the sensation. Is my jaw getting tight? Is my heart beating faster? Do I feel like this pit in my stomach? For me, it's like there's just this rising of like heat. It just like builds and it comes up to my face. So there's a sensation that we all have, and it's all unique to us. And you might think about it now. If you think back to the conversation that was difficult, that we visualized in the beginning, think of what was happening in your body in that conversation, right? There is a moment of discomfort. And usually we want to push it away or we want to ignore it, but instead we want to use it as our cue to bring in a practice that is going to calm our body in the moment so that then we can connect. So just think about if you know what that sensation is, because that really becomes your cue to do something different, okay? Like I know when that heat is rising, my work is, can I deflate it? Because it feels like this big balloon that's just rising. Can I deflate this balloon so that I can access myself, so that I can express myself? Yeah? So I'm just you don't have to share the sensation, but do you have an idea of what the sensation could be for you in your body? And it might not be easy to pinpoint, but it's something to just start thinking about or start noticing, right? So the first piece is that awareness. I'm uncomfortable. Usually we let that discomfort lead our interaction. Instead, we're going to notice, okay, I'm uncomfortable. Now what can I do to help myself feel safe in that moment, right? So one of the practices you can do is the O in soften, which is own your discomfort. Usually in challenging conversations, we are looking for the other person to validate us. it would be lovely if the other person could say, "You are right," or "I totally understand what you're saying," or, I'm thinking about it and I want to find a way to work this out, right? We are really wanting the other person to validate in the moment, and often that can't happen. So what we have to do is we have to find a way to do it for ourselves in that moment. We have to turn inward, and we have to notice that discomfort, and we have to basically say, okay, here I am, I'm feeling really uncomfortable right now. It's okay, right? We're gonna change this around. I see that I'm uncomfortable. Even just noticing it and saying it, it can break the intensity of the feeling, okay? Other things you can do though, you can do finger taps, because touch and talking is really good to relax the body, to own your own discomfort. So if you just point your finger to your thumb, middle finger, ring finger, pinky finger, and you can say things like calm begins with me, or, I'm feeling really hurt, or, right? Like you're just trying to detach yourself from the back and forth that we get so quickly involved in, right? Another way you can own your discomfort in the moment is by, putting your hand at your shoulder and just rubbing down to your wrists, right? You're just letting your body know, okay, you're safe in this moment. And these are not things that are very, what's the word? Like they're not really overt, right? People aren't going to notice that you're doing it. It's pretty subtle in a conversation, right? You might even notice that you already do these things. Some people will rub their chests. Another thing you can do is even just tugging your ear, or there's this thing called the tragus, I'm just gonna put it there. That little flap there, even just try it. You can put your finger here and just rub, and it should start to relax you, because it activates the vagus nerve, which is the longest parasympathetic nerve in the body, right? So even just doing that in a difficult moment in a conversation, the whole point is to soften, to ground. I don't know if any of you have taken martial arts or done any martial arts at all. But one of the first thing I learned when I took Aikido for like a hot second and I got my yellow belt was that if somebody is attacking you and you are, you're rigid, you're gonna break, like you are going to fall. But if you soften your body, if you ground into it, you can move, right? You can pivot, you can be flexible. And that's what we want to figure out. How do we get that in these difficult moments, right? So that's a practice that we can do, is we can own our discomfort. Another one, the F, is to focus on the present moment. Usually in challenging moments, situations, we are really distracted. Like we are so caught up in the other person's words and their language, and we are just hooked into it. And so our work is, can I detach from what's happening? Can I unhook myself from what's happening and pay attention to the present moment? So we can do that by even just now, like noticing what your hands are doing, what your feet are doing, and what is your belly doing. I mean, it takes just a few seconds, right, to just notice what's happening in the present moment. Another thing you can do, you feel that discomfort in the body, and then you just start in your mind, you're silently saying to yourself, what is in the room, right? Like chairs, clock, books, people, stage. And again, you are just coming back into the present so that you're detaching from what's around you so that then you can speak, yeah? Another practice that you can bring in is taking a breath, which we have heard many times before, but this is different. This isn't just like, just take a breath. This is, you feel the discomfort in the body, and then maybe you do a breath pattern. So you inhale for 5, we can do it together. Inhale for 5, hold for 5, and exhale for 5. And the great thing with breath patterns, nobody knows you're doing it, right? And the other part you can do is just notice now where your breath is in your body. And usually for a lot of us, it's just up here, it's in the chest. And in challenging conversations, in difficult moments, it usually is in the chest because that's really anxious breathing. So our work is, can we move the breath into the belly? So you can try now to move your breath from your chest to your belly. And you can even put your hand on your belly to just feel it maybe going out and in. And so doing that within a challenging moment, you notice, okay, here I am. I'm clenching my jaw, my heart's beating faster. I'm going to see, where's my breath? I'm gonna move it into my belly and just breathe in and out of my belly. Then I'm gonna talk. Then I'm gonna express myself, right? So there's lots of different breathing techniques you can do in that moment. And then another thing you can do, another practice, is called eyes turn towards another. So in these challenging times, what we tend to do is we tend to push away. We tend to walk away. You know, we are very, very quick to make the other person an enemy. And our work instead is, can we see that other person with friendly eyes? Can we see them as somebody that we care for, that we respect, that we want to be kind to, that we appreciate in that moment? So basically, can we turn them from that lion into an actual human being again, right? Into the person again. And so we do that by maybe coming with this idea of a stance of appreciation. So we start to see, can I appreciate this other person somehow, right? When I look at this person, maybe I wish them well in that moment. I wish them happiness. I wish them joy, right? I wish them kindness. And what that does is it brings forth compassion. And that's really what we need to be able to, you know, connect in that moment where usually we want to be hard. And Gandhi said, you can't shake hands with a clenched fist. And that's basically what we're doing in that moment, right? Like, we are opening ourselves to be able to connect. And then the last practice that we can pull in is something called need to say. And usually we think a lot about what we need to say to the other person. Before, if we're planning a difficult conversation, we think a lot about the other person, right? But this is more, what do we need to say to ourselves in this moment to help ourselves feel more relaxed? How can we help ourselves feel calm in that moment? So you feel that difficult sensation rising in the body, and you can even say the word soften to yourself. We can say it 3 times. You do soft on the inhale and N on the exhale. And I don't know if maybe you noticed anything. A little bit, maybe more like your shoulders come down. Maybe you feel a little more in your center, right? So if you also put your name in front of these practices, studies have shown that it helps with emotional regulation, right? So you can use the word soften. You can say a word like open, right? Doing, like, it reminds you to do the opposite of what you want to do in that moment. Stay open, open. You can use the word swerve so that, you know, if somebody's coming at you, you're just reminding yourself to kind of make way for their language to move around you, right? So you don't get hooked into it. You can talk about how in this moment, right, we want to kind of change the way that we're interacting. So maybe saying to yourself, change me into the person who, like, change me into the person who can be patient right now. Change me into the person who can be kind right now, right? There's lots of different practices that we can do, and they're all in there. But this is the idea, right? The idea is that we want to soften in these moments so that then we can express ourselves in a kind, honest, and helpful way. We cannot access that information unless we are out of our sympathetic nervous system. Does this make sense? Yeah? Okay. So the other piece to mention is meditation, because meditation is something that you can do outside of a difficult conversation, right? The practices that I'm talking to here, they happen during the moment. But meditation is something you can practice outside. So it's time where you set aside maybe 5 to 10 minutes to formally sit. And by doing this, what you're doing is you're training your brain to be in those challenging situations and not get caught in the distraction, to not get caught up in the conversation, but to be able to respond instead of react. Because meditation helps us become more responsive instead of reactive, right? So there's different meditations you can do that help each of these practices or make these practices easier to implement. And so I thought it would be fun for us to meditate together. And I'll take 3 different meditation practices and bring them together so that you get a sense of some of the different ones. And then afterwards, I'll share what those are or how they'll be helpful, right, in these challenging situations. So has anybody meditated or not meditated before? Meditated, not meditated, meditated. Okay. Yes. Okay. So just follow along and everything will be fine. Okay. So go ahead and close your eyes. And if at any time you need to open your eyes, that's okay. Just you can open them for a moment and then close them again when you feel comfortable. So just start to sit in a posture that you respect. It can be upright, but one that's comfortable. Maybe tuck the chin slightly, just feel the stretch in the back of the neck. And bring your attention to the top of the head. And see if you can soften the top of the head. Relax the forehead. You can let the eyes be heavy. Relax the cheeks. And let the jaw go. Relax the ears. And just notice the sensations present. Relax the neck. Soften the throat. And let the shoulders relax back and down. Letting the arms feel heavy. The hands feel heavy. Relax the chest. And let the belly go, just let it hang out. Start to feel the support of the chair underneath you. And see if you can sink into the support, really letting yourself be held here. And relax the right leg from the hip to the toes. And the left leg from the hip to the toes. Just noticing the whole body relaxed and still. You might notice sensations. That's okay. Just welcome whatever's here. Now see if you can call to mind someone that you really care for. And you can maybe see them in front of you. And you can silently say, may you know love. May you know joy. May you know peace. May you be free from suffering. And may you live with ease. May you know love. May you know joy. May you know peace. May you be free from suffering. And may you live with ease. You can let this image go and call to mind someone that you're having challenges with right now, or you're having difficulty with in some way. And silently say, may you know love. May you know joy. May you know peace. May you be free from suffering. And may you live with ease. May you know love. May you know joy. May you know peace. May you be free from suffering. And may you live with ease. You can let this image go. And now see if you can see yourself in front of you. And offer the same to yourself. May you know love. May you know joy. May you know peace. May you be free from suffering. And may you live with ease. May you know love. May you know joy. May you know peace. May you be free from suffering. And may you live with ease. And you can let this image go. Just bring your attention to where your breath is in the body. Maybe it's at the nostrils. Maybe it's at the chest or the belly. And see if you can follow the breath all the way to the top of the inhale, noticing the pause, and following it all the way to the exhale, noticing the pause. And your breath, it might speed up, it may get shallower or deeper, and that's okay. Just noticing what's here. And if your mind is thinking a lot, or you notice that your attention is caught in thoughts, or just not on the breath anymore, just label it thinking. Thanks for sharing. And bring your attention back to the breath. It doesn't matter how many times you have to refocus. This really is the practice, remembering to be present, forgetting to be present. take your attention off the breath. So your attention isn't on anything right now. You're just sitting here in the stillness, in this room. Maybe you start to remember what's in front of you, what's behind you, what's to the sides of you. Starting to notice the sound around you. And taking some deeper breaths, you can start to circle the wrists, maybe roll the shoulders, circle the head. Just stretching out into space. Just kind of feel what space feels like. And when you're ready, you can blink your eyes open. Just noticing the shapes, the colors around you. And coming back. Okay. So how was that? Was that comfortable for everybody? Good. Okay. So we did a body scan meditation, and that was the first meditation that we did. And that is really for us to start becoming more comfortable with paying attention to our body, right? To understand what's a pleasant sensation, what's an unpleasant sensation, what's a neutral sensation. Then the meditation we did after that is called a loving kindness meditation. It's called metta meditation. And this is really to cultivate more compassion, more self-compassion and compassion for others, which is something we definitely need when we're in challenging moments and times. And then the third meditation we did was a breath awareness practice. And that really is more to train our brain to notice distraction, to notice when we're caught up in our thinking thoughts, and see if we can just say, thank you for sharing. I don't need to believe you right now. I can come back to the present moment, and I can focus on my breath, right? Because the breath is really, we use that as a portal to the present moment and sensation. So those were the 3 you guys did today. There's many more that help us with these moments, these challenging interactions, and so on. So I did want to just open it up for questions, if anybody has any this evening. So there you go. And if not, that's okay too.
So how do you prepare for, there's going to be a stressful conversation?
Yeah.
It's been build up. Are you doing these things beforehand, kind of self-practice?
Yeah.
I guess, how do you approach those things that are going to be stressful?
Yeah. So there's a few things that you can do before a difficult conversation. One, you want to understand that your role in the conversation, right, is to stay in your lane, meaning that in the interaction, understanding that the other person is going to react no matter what. So whether they react in a good way or in a quote unquote bad way, it's okay because they are human and they are going to react, right? So our work is we say what we have to say, we hold the space for their reaction. It's almost like, I don't know if you know the image of the Atlas man where he's like holding up the world. So our practice in the moment is to express ourselves, hold up the world while they react. They can react, they can say whatever they want to say, and you're just there, you're noticing it, you're observing what they're saying, and then they're finished, and then you come back to like your direction, right? So one practice to know is that in that moment, you're gonna wanna hold that space, okay? So you start to pay attention before the moment to know, I'm just gonna let them react, and then I'm gonna continue, right? In terms of the thoughts that we can think before a difficult conversation and how we can get really anxious about them or nervous about it and we can't stop thinking about it and it's like a loop, right? That work is a bit different. That is really moving the body, right? So there's just even like shaking the body, shaking the hands, putting on a song that you love to dance to. It's like getting that energy out of the body before you have a difficult conversation is really important. There's also being able to do, I don't know if you've ever heard of, it's called tapping. So it's something where you have like an acupuncture, there's acupuncture points. This is kind of like acupressure, but what you're doing is you're tapping certain places on the body while you're saying what you're scared of. So like we could do a round right now if you want to try it. So just take an inhale and an exhale and think about where you are on the scale of like 1 to 10, 10 being really stressed out about the conversation itself that you're about to have, 1 being not so stressed. So where would you fall right now? 6? Okay. Okay, so you're just gonna follow me in what I'm doing. Even though I'm really stressed about this conversation I'm about to have, we can all do it together. You can input anything you want here about what you're stressed about or anxious about. Even though I'm really stressed about this conversation coming up, you have to say it out loud. Okay. I deeply love and accept myself. Even though I'm anxious about this upcoming conversation, I deeply love and accept myself. I'm really nervous about this conversation. I'm really scared of what this other person is going to say. I'm nervous about how I'm going to react. I'm scared I might lose my marbles. I feel all this anxiety. I feel all. Yes, this is not for during a conversation. This is like before. Yeah. So, all this stress, all this anxiety in my body. I wish it would go away. Okay, take a moment and take a breath. Exhale. What number are you now? A 4. Okay, we're going to do one more round. Yeah. Okay, we're going to do one more round. Even though I'm really nervous about this conversation, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. Even though I'm really anxious about what's to come, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. What if I could feel calm about this conversation? What if this conversation is going to go really, really well? What if I could let go of all this fear and anxiety? I can do that. I can choose to be calm right now. I can choose to feel confident about this conversation I'm going into. I can feel confident about this conversation. I can handle this conversation. Okay, now take a breath. And where are you now? Right. So doing something like tapping before is really, really good because what it does is it helps us relieve the anxiety and the stress, right? And to be able to have the difficult conversation, that's what we're trying to do. So before the conversation, even if it's like a minute or 5 minutes before, you can do a round of tapping, or you put on music and you dance, right? And also, another thing that you can do is you can brain dump like all of your fears, right? But then what you're going to do is you're going to turn the fear into more of like a, I want to say affirmation, but it's more like a mantra, right? So it would be something that you would say to yourself, over and over that will help you. Like, I can express myself calmly and confidently. I am going to be able to hold space for this reaction, right? Does that help? Yeah.
Repeat it.
Okay. I'm trying to be tactful.
Yeah.
What happens when you are in a situation and the conversation goes in a direction you're not liking it and you're in their presence?
Yeah.
How do you respond at that time? Do you do stuff like, things like this? I mean, I'm not doing it at home. I'm in the presence.
Yeah.
And this conversation is making me very, very, very tense and anxious and angry.
Yeah. So, yes, in the moment. So in the moment practices, that's all in here. But I will say that in the moment, if you want to leave that conversation or you want to stay, which one?
I want to stay.
You want to stay and you want to have a conversation or listen,
It's hard to listen sometimes
right?
without getting myself so anxious.
Yeah. So in that moment, it is, the wonderful thing is that you know that that's happening, right? So you can feel it in your body. So right then when you feel it, it's figuring out, okay, what is a go-to practice for me that is going to squash this sensation, that is going to like deflate the sensation. So maybe it is just, finger tapping. You don't have to say anything necessarily. You could just finger tap in the moment. Or you can create a fist and push it into your leg. Because what you're doing is you're trying to move that energy that is blocking you from being able to hear, right? So you can even look at the person and be like, I love this person. I think they're wonderful. I really, can I be here and listen to them right now? Can I open myself, drop the story and open myself to the moment, right? And so you're talking to yourself in the moment. They're talking at you. And a lot of people will say, well, but then you're not really listening. And it's true. You have something going on in the foreground, which is them, and then you have something in the background, which is us. And rarely do we pay attention to us in a conversation. So it's practicing paying attention to yourself, calming yourself, and then turning towards them so that then you can listen, right? You can also, in the moment, just say, this is a lot for me. I need to take a moment to think about what I want to say, or you can say, I'm having a hard time listening. I want to be able to listen. I need a moment. And we forget that we can say that too, right? Because the other person wants us to hear them as well. And if we can't, then we have to say, I actually can't hear right now because I am at a 5. So I need to get myself to a 2 so that I can listen to what you have to say, right? And there's no problem in saying that either. Did that help? Does that make sense? But I would suggest just flipping through, because if you just pick one, you're not going to do all these practices. It's you're just going to pick one or go-to practices.
Hi.
Hey,
Sorry, I have a lot of questions.
it's okay. Ask away.
But I'll keep some of those for another time. You have a 30-day pause calendar in the book. Mm-hmm. I'm curious about how, because obviously to develop a habit it requires time, consistency. Mm-hmm. So I'm curious about that 30-day calendar, where you find, do you kind of go back to the 30 days and just do it again when you feel like there's a slip, or do you find particular parts where you're, obviously it's per person and what works for you.
Yeah.
But for you in this experience of the 30 days, where's the element, I guess what I'm asking from a data side is, where's the element of where it's important to repeat?
Yeah.
Does that make sense
Yeah,
as a question?
it makes sense, yeah.
Okay.
So I think that when you start to notice that you're going back into old patterns or old habits, right? That's when you want to come back to the practice, right? You want to bring back, because what we're trying to do with the 30-day pause plan is to practice one you can pick one and practice it for a week, and then pick another practice and practice that for another week. You're trying to figure out which ones work for me, and then you're just going to start doing them. Then when you notice you're not doing it, you're going to go back. Does that make sense?
It does, and that leads me to the second question.
Go for it.
Which might be a little harder to answer.
Yeah.
Do you find any similarities between types of people and the type? Because I know you work with a lot of different folks. I run a company, and my focus is always trying to understand my team more.
Yeah.
And our company specifically deals with people, existing and adventuring in life. So all of this is very connected. So I'm kind of curious, do you find valences that match up per person? Because one thing that struck out to me was you mentioned safety.
Yeah.
And my grandfather's always like, men don't have safety, we provide it. So, there's that kind of like, kind of mental, rubric in the brain. So I'm deeply curious about if you find any, whether it's like from male or female or age, like do you find any of these practices that have similarities? I know it's a big question and maybe it's not one to be answered right away, but I'm curious about how you've thought about it.
Yeah. I mean, I think that there are certain, like I would say CEOs and leaders, often in terms of pausing strategies, like the ones that are tactile, right? And it really is easy for them, the finger tapping one, because they can do it on the desk, they can do it on the leg, they can do it under a table, right? And also like the rubbing of the jaw, but they usually like tactile, something that they can feel, right? And then I think that there's, other like more, I would say like managers or people like, employees, they're more interested in like the breathing is more, it's much easier for them to access, like the breathing patterns and things of that nature. But it really, it's so, independent. It's just people resonate with one or another. But that's really what I found in terms of just, like in terms of in the workplace, what people resonate with a lot. Did that answer the question?
It did, yeah. Because in a way, I just think about the controls. Because like for me, there's less question of safety because I'm the one who's responsible for providing it.
Right.
So then you have the next level of someone who is a manager who provides it, but also can be unsafe because they can just lose their job.
Yeah.
And then you have the other kind of folks who involve themselves in the process where the question is how much control do you have on that space? Because even as she mentioned earlier, when you're in a conversation, you don't plan on being that's very intense.
Yeah.
How do you navigate that? Because that sense of control, that sense of peace is disturbed, and then finding that place, obviously, with that goes into there. So, anyways, those are my questions for now.
But it's a great question because I think it is, I think what you bring up is a really good point around, like the position that you're in has a. If you're an employee or you're a manager, you're worrying more about what's above you and potentially losing your position, right? And so I think that is probably why breathing is easier or more accessible, or it helps faster for people, because especially if the belly breathing, because you're accessing your parasympathetic nervous system very quickly through the vagus nerve, and the vagus nerve is like the longest parasympathetic nerve in the body. And so it's one of the fastest ways to feel relaxed and feel safe. So but yeah, I have not thought of it that way. I like that though. Yeah.
Do you use this method with kids?
Yes, I do. So I have 2 kids, 5 and 7. And like as a parent, I'm constantly using these practices for myself to be able to stay calm with my children, for sure. And they also have learned different strategies to be able to notice that they're emotionally at a 5, right? To then be able to come down to a 2. And it's interesting because they've chosen different like mechanisms that work for them. Some is breathing, some is putting on headphones and walking into another room. There's different ways for kids that they use, but yeah.
It makes me think of, with my own children, and me as a child with my parents, that the old count to 10.
Yeah.
I mean, and that really is identify that feeling,
Mm-hmm.
and then give yourself that count to 10 pause
Yeah.
before you react.
Yeah. I mean, counting to 10 is a great practice to do. Yeah.
No more questions? Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Great talk.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks for having me.